Hey guys, I'm just Jershin and welcome back to Season 3 of PokeMarch Madness. If you have no idea what PokeMarch Madness is, go back and watch the last episode, the first episode of Season 3, or go back to Season 1 if you really want to start the entire thing. But Season 3 of PokeMarch Madness, we've done one episode thus far. The theme, of course, of this year's PokeMarch Madness is characters, which is a little, like I said, the order is going to be a little wonky this year because we're not going chronological generation at a time. Last time we did rivals. Honestly, I yapped way too long. I did like a complete Freudian psychoanalysis of every single character. I don't think that will happen today. I think today's will be a little bit more straightforward and there's less characters in general because the theme of today's bracket is champions. We are going to be looking at the champions from each region. We also have, look at this perfect bracket. It's a perfect bracket. There's no bye weeks. We have a perfectly filled bracket today. If you'd like to fill out this bracket yourself, follow along if you want to. Link will be in the description down below, of course. My boy Yeetus and NSL will also be doing these brackets, I believe. You should go watch their videos as well because we've been doing this now for this going on 3 years, and I like seeing the varying opinions between the multiples. So, last episode, I said this year I want to try to be more objective. So I tried to put some metrics last time that we did rivals on what makes a good rival. And the 3 metrics that I had come up with are scary battles, good character arc, and involved in the story in some way. I sat down once again and I thought about the characteristics of a good champion, and my metric, there's only 2 metrics this time. I thought of some third ones, but then as I started thinking about it more and more, I had some ideas here and there, and I was like, it's not really that important, in my opinion, of what makes a good champion. And the more and more I thought about it, it kind of narrows it down to 2 important characteristics. Number 1, first and foremost, you are the final battle as the champion. You're the final battle of the main game. You better have a good team. You better be a tough fight. That is component number 1 of, in my opinion, what makes a good champion. You have to have a memorable team that puts up a pretty solid fight. That's gonna eliminate like half of these jokers right off the bat. Number 2, the second thing that I think adds a lot to a champion, I think the singular word to describe it would be mythos. A champion, a good champion, in my opinion, should be a larger-than-life character. They are the champion. They are, in theory, the best Pokemon trainer of the entire region. When they enter a cafe, a hush should fall across the crowd. They should be talked about all across the region. Renowned for their power, their battling prowess. They should have some mythos. People yapping about them all across the region. To me, that just helps kind of a little bit with the world building and really cements them as like a larger than life figure when you finally get to them. And that mythos can either be built, I think it could be built in 2 ways. Number 1 is in-game, obviously, if the character is built up within the storyline itself. And number 2 is, you know, in the general Pokemon community at large. There are some characters in here that have, you know, reached almost like godlike status amongst the Pokemon community, and some of them are so scary that even a few notes of their theme are enough to send shivers down your spine. That's a good champion. Anyway, those are the 2 metrics I'm going to be basing these bad boys on. I think matchup mode, since there's no buys, hopefully matchup mode works for the entire thing, because I really like having these nice larger pictures here. So here we go. Less yapping this one already. As you know, we will start on the... Actually, matchup mode might not work for this because I think it forces you to do the entire left side and then the entire right side. Maybe we won't do matchup mode. I like to go down the left side, then over to the right side, and continue getting closer and closer to the middle. For the first round here, we'll do a little bit of a deep dive into the characters, my opinions on them, my history with them, my personal experience with them as champions. And then once we get towards the center, it's going to be more just gut feeling, so it'll go quicker. Final thing, and I did mention the stipulation in the rival video as well. You should go watch that because a lot of my opinions will get shared there as well. But there are some characters that appear in multiple brackets. For example, Blue and Trace, multiple, were in the rival bracket as well. But in that video, I was judging them as a rival. How do they stack up as a rival who you fight throughout the entire game? In this video, The fact that they're a rival could, you know, make the fact that they're a champion a little cooler, could add some mythos to it, but I'm gonna judge them purely as a champion. We're gonna forget all of the rival stuff that happened over the course of the game, and I'm gonna look at you objectively as a champion. How do you stack up compared to some of the other champions? Okay, without further ado, Blue is a great way to get started because he does the thing I was just talking about. He is a rival. You follow him. You're in the shadow of his footsteps almost for the entirety of the game. You go to the one gym, he's already defeated it. You catch 50 Pokemon, he's caught 51 Pokemon. You're in the shadow of him constantly throughout the game. And at the ultimate moment, when you finally were about to become the champion, you defeat Lance, you find out he beat you to it again. And now you have to go defeat him one final time. Now, I'm not judging him as a rival, but the fact that he is a rival who you have to fight constantly, who's always one step ahead of you, and he's your ultimate competitor, in my opinion. The hardest fights in first generation are the blue fights. And so the fact that you've already butted heads with him so many times, for him to be standing in your way one final time at the end, that adds a lot to the mythos for me personally. There may not be people amongst the region, you know, talking in hushed tones about him, but for your personal journey, he's got a lot of significance. So he gets a lot of points, in my opinion, for that mythos. Diantha is interesting. Interesting in that she has a lot of mythos. People hype her up. She's kind of like a celebrity of the Kalos region. I think she's a movie star. X and Y are probably my least played games, unfortunately, so my lore knowledge here hurts a little bit. But I believe that she is a movie star in the region, and she does get talked about quite often. But typically it's because of how cool a movie star she is, or how pretty she is, or how blah blah blah. It's never this like fear of how good a Pokemon trainer she is. And I think it kind of makes sense why they talk about her like that, because her battle is fairly easy. I remember her having a couple of scary Pokemon. The Mega Gardevoir, obviously terrifying. Hawlucha is a beefy boy and I love him. But she also has some strange, I think she has a Goodra as well. And she's got some strange additions to the team as well, like an Aurorus, which is an ice rock type, which has the most weaknesses of any Pokemon in the entire game. In general, from what I remember about Diantha, is that she was a little bit of a pushover. I think I absolutely blasted past her, and I think that tends to be most people's perspective as well. So while she may be built up in the region as like a really cool character, I don't think she holds up. Blue's team, on the other hand, is terrifying. The Gyarados, the Pidgeot, obviously the other starter that you don't have, and then depending on what starter you chose, the rest of his team is filled with either Exeggutor, Arcanine, or I can't remember what the water type is. I don't remember the water type because I always chose Charmander as a kid, so I always had Charizard, so he always had Blastoise. He had Blastoise, Exeggutor, Arcanine, Gyarados, Pidgeot, and one Rhydon. Oh my god. The fact that I can name all 6 members of his team right there for you should tell you that they've struck a chord with me over the course of my life. Blue's gonna win this first round quite easily. Next we have Hau versus Iris. Hau is in the last bracket as well. Hau becomes champion in Pokemon Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon. He does not become champion in regular Sun and Moon. And honestly, I think that's the way it should have stayed. Hau is, in my opinion, not a great rival. He is not very good at battling. He's there for a good time, but not a long time. How about that, to say it nicely? And so to get to the end and to see that he lost and that he's not going to be the champion, it just made sense for his character. Hau kind of always comes up short, but that's okay. So for them to change his storyline in Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, and you show up and he's like, "It's me!" didn't vibe with me. He doesn't strike me as a champion. He strikes no fear whatsoever into my heart. I'm sorry, Hau. I don't mean to be rude. He strikes no fear into my heart, and beyond that, I can't tell you a single member of this man's team. I could not tell you a single member of this man's team. Iris, on the other hand, the Dragon Master. Here's something else that we're probably going to get into with several characters that I think is important. I didn't make it a rule. I thought about making it the third metric, but one thing that always comes to mind is, does the champion have a varied team or do they have a type themed team? Now, I think the varied teams are cooler. I think it's cooler for a champion to not be singularly type themed. A single, if you, no offense to Steven, but if you're a steel type specialist, actually Wallace is a better example. If you're a water type specialist, if I can body your entire team with a single electric type, I don't think you're deserving of being the champion. I think it's smarter that you have nice team building. You pick up weaknesses where strengths where other Pokemon have weaknesses. You have counter typings to cover certain Pokemon's weaknesses. That's a good team builder in my opinion. However, there are some trainers who, even though they are monotype, their teams are scary. And Iris is a very good example of that. She is a dragon type trainer. I believe she has a Hydreigon, she has a Haxorus. I don't think you have a Druddigon. I'm trying to remember, but I do not think you have a Druddigon. And she actually has some fairly other varied Pokemon as well, and they kind of strike fear into my heart, because even though they're all dragon types, dragon is one of the most terrifying. This is before fairy type existed. And they strike a little bit of fear into your heart. Now, I can only remember about half of her team off of the top of my head. Look, she's easily gonna beat Hao. That's potentially gonna hurt her down the line, though. Next, we got the Battle of the Red Spiky Hair. I would love to achieve this someday. I would also love to achieve, how do I get Alder's forearms? I got little spaghetti forearms going on right now. How do I get that man's, how do I get this going on right? Teach me, Alder. We have Alder versus Lance. Both of these, in my opinion, have massive mythos. Lance is just like so integral to the story. Obviously, in Pokemon Red and Blue, he is the penultimate challenge before you become the champion, the Dragon Master, that at that point in the game, there was only one Dragon-type Pokemon in the entire game, which does hurt him a little bit, because his team is like 3 Dragonair and a Dragonite and a Gyarados, which isn't actually Dragon-type. I think the lack of dragon types in early generations kind of hurt his team comps a little bit. Ice type kind of just runs right over him, but dragon was such a rare and scary type in the early generations that it added a lot of mystique to Lance. Even through Gen 2 where they added Kingdra, and was Kingdra the only dragon type they added through 2 generations when he was champion? I believe so. And his team was a little bit scarier when he was the champion. I think he added on a Gyarados, Aerodactyl, some Dragonites. It's a scary team, no doubt, but it is very mono-typed. Alder, you know, from the moment he jumps off the cliff early on in Black and White, you can tell that he's a cool character. The character design on this guy is amazing. I love when they take the Pokeballs that their team members are in and they incorporate it into the design in some way. So his cool Pokeball necklace has always been like one of my favorite things of all time. I think it looks super cool. And he just looks, look at him. If you saw these two dudes getting into a fist fight, who you got winning? I'll take the forearms. He's such a cool character, and he is spoken about throughout the region, so that when you finally get to the penultimate challenge, going up against the what you think is the champion, I will say it was a little upsetting that you show up and he's already been defeated, and then you fight N instead. Spoiler alert, we'll get to N. You do get to fight Alder as a champion on your second go-around, but it kind of took a little bit away from him that, you know, he's been built up throughout the game. It's cool for N's story, don't get me wrong. But what they give to N, they take away from Alder, and he loses a little bit of mystique towards the end for me. However, his team is a lot scarier. I think you have the Druddigon. What's interesting is he also has 3 bug types. He has an Acelgor, an Escavalier, and a Volcarona, which is one of my favorite bug types of all time. You would think that someone with a bug type team would be a little bit of a pushover, but I remember his battle being rather tough. Lance can be scary if you don't bring an ice type, but if you just bring an ice type, you're probably fine. So I'm going to give the win here to Alder, who I think is just a cooler character. This one is kind of mean. So Peony you meet in the Crown Tundra DLC, Pokemon Sword and Shield. He is Chairman Rose's younger or older brother, I don't remember. And he was a champion. If you're curious why he's in this bracket, in his lore, he was a champion at one time. He specializes in the Steel type, and we do get to fight him several times over the course of the DLC, but you never get to actually see him in that champion's role, although I think he served for he was like a champion for like 20 years or something, so he was skilled, don't get me wrong. but we never get to actually see him in that role. That takes a lot away from him, in my opinion. Cynthia. What can one even say that has not already been said about Cynthia? She exudes step on me energy in a good way. Her team is terrifying. She, as I alluded to earlier, from the second you enter the champion chamber and you hear the subtle piano notes in the background, it's enough to send chills down a grown man's spine. In fact, most people, maybe small spoilers here, who played Pokemon Legends Arceus will know that when you got to the, I won't say this specific character, but when you get to the end of the game and you fight the final boss, who at that point you don't really know who it is, and the piano notes begin, and you instantly are taken back 15 years to the back of your grandma's car where you're going to the Golden Corral fighting the champion Cynthia for the very first time. It's terrifying. And the fact that Cynthia didn't even have to be on screen, all I had to do was hear her music for me to still be terrified all these years later, is a testament to the mythos. She is important to the story. She has kind of a mythos in the Sinnoh region, but she has such a mythos in the general Pokemon community at large, and the team is terrifying. Cynthia's Garchomp, the Spirit Tomb, which at the time Fairy type did not exist, so there were no super effective moves against it. To lead with the Spirit Tomb, the Milotic, the Roserade, the Togekiss when you fight her in Platinum. I think in the original she had, I don't remember what she had instead of Togekiss, but the Togekiss is the one that I remember more. And of course, the most terrifying, excuse me, I do not want, thank you Epic Games for the free game. I will download this later, but I'm not going to download it right now. Of course, Cynthia's Garchomp, which is just unbelievable. And just when you thought this fight couldn't get any harder, there's not a lot of things I'll say good about Pokemon Brilliant Diamond, Shining Pearl. They made her team competitively viable. Flame Orb, Marble Scale, Milotic, just to name one of them. She bodied me, absolutely bodied me. I got one shot by the Garchomp. The coverage was insane. It's so fast, it outsped everything on my team. I think I only ended up winning that fight from a crit Mamoswine Ice Shard. Otherwise, I was donezo. Cynthia wins series. I'm sorry, Peony, you were never really a champion. Okay, see, I don't want to go down the left side. I want to go to the right side now. We're going to go to the right side now. We're going to talk about Red and Kukui. Red. Can a character have more mythos than Red? I don't think so. This is the Mamma Jamma. Don't get me wrong, this is the character we started as in Pokemon Red and Blue. So from that alone, the lore drenched within this character. And from Gold and Silver, where you fight Red at the very, very end of the game. From the anime, not the Ash Ketchum anime, but I think in the Journeys follows Red and his rise to fame. There is no more mysterious, silent protagonist probably in the entire Pokemon universe than Red. His name alone carries such a weight to it, and he's got such a it's kind of a cheating team. You just gotta give him all the starters plus a Snorlax plus a Pikachu with Volt Tackle plus, why can't I remember? It's always the fifth one that I can't remember. I'm sad that I can't remember his fifth Pokemon. A terrifying team. Kukui's team a little bit less memorable. I remember the Rockruff, who is not Rockruff, it's Lycanroc. I remember his Lycanroc, but only because it's the first Pokemon you see him hanging out with in the beginning of the game. I don't remember a lot of the rest of his team. I think Kukui is an amazing professor, and we will get to professors in a future bracket. I think Kukui was such a nice, fresh change of pace as far as professors go. But he kind of just got thrown into the champion role because it was the first time they created the Elite Four in the Alola region. There had never been a championship before, so he kind of just became the champion out of, well, no one else. We've never done this before, so I guess I'll be the champion. And he did a decent job. Not as good a job as Red, though. Red's gonna win this one. Next, we have Wallace and Leon. Dude, Resident Sword and Shield stan has locked on. I know Sword and Shield is like the game that completely broke the Pokemon community, the straw that broke the camel's back. The characters in Sword and Shield are so freaking good. They did such a good job. Now, part of this is I am a Wallace hater. As I mentioned before, so in Pokemon Ruby Sapphire, he was the 8th gym leader, and then he gets promoted all the way to champion. Forget a member of the Elite Four. He goes all the way to champion. He had some really tough shoes to follow in Emerald, going from Steven, who, even though he is a steel type trainer, he's got some really good coverage on the team, and it's not purely steel types. And he's got a really terrifying team, Metagross included. To Wallace, who's Milotic is scary, but doesn't this man rock a love disc? I can't take a champion seriously who's rocking a love disc. I'm sorry. The mono water type does not help him out. It makes him a little bit of a pushover, and he's definitely a downgrade from Steven. Leon, on the other hand, is just a core, integral part of the Sword and Shield story. He is, I think is he in the opening cutscene? And of course, Charizard sucks, I hate Charizard. Why does Game Freak love Charizard? Because Charizard's a cool 4'7" dragon, that's why. A short king. And so is Leon. I don't know how tall Leon is. Leon is cool as heck. He is, they kind of took the gym thing in Sword and Shield and they turned it into like almost a sporting event. You've got stadiums packed with people coming to watch these battles. And Leon is almost, if you want to go with the sports analogy, Leon is like the Tom Brady of, he's the champion, not only because he's a great battler, but because he has adoring fans everywhere. Maybe Tom Brady not a great option because most people hate his guts. However, you know what I'm saying. He is like, in this game's context, for how they turned battles and gym battles, he is the GOAT. He is the champion, and he has hordes of screaming fans from the first town where you find him. He's being swarmed by people. Yeah, get your autograph. It adds such a nice weightiness to Leon, to his mythos. And his team is pretty beefy as well. As long as you don't choose, I think if you choose Sobble, which I happen to, no, if you choose Grookey, he gets Score Bunny, and he ends up with a double fire. He gets a Score Bunny or a Cinderace plus a Charizard. That's kind of lame. I chose Sobble, so he ended up with a Rillaboom. He ended up with a really, really stacked team. Although I can only seem to remember the Rillaboom. Oh, Dragapult, Rillaboom. Of course, his ace Charizard, who Gigantamaxes and is absolutely insane. I can't remember the other members of his team, though, but I'll tell you what, I can remember more of yours than I can remember of Wallace, and I think Leon is sick. Underrated, in my personal opinion. N versus Mustard. This one's going to go to N pretty easily. Mustard, same issue as Peony. He's introduced in Isle of Armor. You hear that he was a champion at some point. He specializes in the fighting type. You get to fight him a couple of times in Isle of Armor. We never get to see him in action. And on the other hand, in Pokemon Black and White, he kind of gets the blue treatment. He gets there just before you did. Right as you're ready to go face Alder to claim your championship, N shows up and says, sorry, I won first. And then a castle raises out of the earth. It is one of the coolest, most cinematic champion battles in the entire history. And as we spoke about in the rival video, his team is very scary. The Zoroark, his ace Zoroark, which can potentially show up as any Pokemon that's on his team. You have absolutely no idea. Still strikes fear into my heart to this day, and he's gonna beat Mustard very easily because Mustard barely gets talked about. Now, I've already said some pretty great things about Steven, and I've already said some pretty horrible things about Trace in the last video. I'll give Trace credit. He's got a Mega. That's pretty cool. Mega Pidgeot, very cool. He's like the only trainer that gets a Mega in Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee through the first playthrough, until the post game. So that's cool. He's a pushover. He's not good. Steven, on the other hand, is tough. Now, I didn't struggle with Steven as much. I always picked the fire starter typically when I was a kid. So I picked Torchic. I also didn't know how to like properly balance a team. So I picked Torchic. And when I first got to the Elite Four, I had like a level 80 Blaziken. A level 80 Blaziken versus Steven's Steel-type team, his Aggron. The Metagross was kind of scary. Even his non-Steel types, the Cradilly, the Skarmory, who is a Steel type. I just Blaze-kicked everything. to the Shadow Realm. So I didn't understand until later in life when I played as somebody other than Blaziken. He's actually got a pretty solid team, even though it is mono steel. Steel was kind of broken during that time period. It resisted almost everything other than fire and fighting. Metagross at the time still resisted dark and maybe also ghost, I can't remember. So fire was the only super effective option against it. It's a pretty beefy team when you're not rocking a Blaziken. And the fire types in that region, there's not a ton of choices. Torkoal, Camerupt, that's pretty much it. If you're not choosing Blaziken as your starter. So I didn't learn about how great a team he had until then. And he has some mythos surrounding him. He's talked about throughout the region, and I think it's very deserving. I think he's an amazing character. It's fun bumping into him, especially in ORAS. He freaking gives you like a Mega Lottie, which is very nice. Thank you, Steven. He's way cooler than Trace. Trace stinks. Okay, so I've kind of given you my general consensus of all the characters for this first go-around. So now we'll go a little bit more rapid fire. Again, keeping my 2 metrics in mind. 2 main metrics: terrifying team, tough battle, memorable team, mythos. Third small characteristic is the diversity of your team. In the case of a tiebreaker, I may bring up that third metric. Blue Iris, it's blue, we're good. Blue Iris, it's blue very easily. For all of the reasons that I mentioned before. I think he is the only, besides Cynthia, Blue and Cynthia are the only 2 that I was able to successfully name their entire teams. Obviously, getting to fight him over the course of the entire game as your rival adds to his mythos before you walk into that final chamber. Iris is cool. She goes, again, a lot of these guys go from gym leader in one game to champion in the other. I'm not saying hers doesn't feel deserved, but after Alder and N, a little bit less exciting. Speaking of Alder versus Cynthia. Cynthia is going to step all over you, brother. As much as I love Alder, I think he's one of the coolest, most well-designed character of all time. Do I need to play the piano for you? Do I need to play it? I'll do it. Cynthia is just... She went down in Pokemon Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum as maybe the hardest battle in Pokemon history, only to be one-upped in Pokemon Legends Arceus by another character who basically just copied her whole flow. Okay, Red versus Leon. I'm gonna make some enemies here. It's Leon. It's Leon, man. I'm sorry. I got body. We streamed Pokemon Sword and Shield, Pokemon Sword specifically, live on Twitch. I had to use like 30 max revives against Leon. I don't know if I was just super under-leveled or what happened when I went into this fight. His Dragapult in Shadow Ball, Flamethrower, Dragon Pulse, I don't even remember its last move, it sent me to the Shadow Realm repeatedly. He was a really, really tough battle. And again, the mythos of him, he is a truly, I mean, Red is about the most larger than life, silent protagonist figure that you can get of all time. Leon is in the eye of the public. People are screaming, cheering for Leon left and right. He's so cool. And he's the older brother of your rival in the game. So you get a cool connection there. He's a cool dude. And he has a cape. Points for capes. N versus Steven, it's going to be N. For the reasons that I mentioned before. Even though I'm having trouble remembering, he's got a weird team. Doesn't he have like a Sigilith and a Vanillish? He's got and a Kling Clang. I actually like his team is tough, but it's a bunch of Pokemon that I maybe don't necessarily care for that much. But it's a good, well-rounded, balanced team nonetheless, as opposed to Steven, who does skew a little heavier towards the steel types. And again, the castle rising from the ground, about as cool as it gets. Cynthia versus Blue. I'm gonna be honest. This could potentially be my champion round. I think Cynthia and Blue I like better than Leon and N. Does that mean that whoever wins this is gonna win the entire thing? Yes, it does. So... Maybe we'll start with the right side. Leon versus N. I'm giving it to Leon. I'm sorry. Maybe I'm a simp. Am I a simp? Possibly. I like Leon so much as a character and as a champion. I love what they did with... I love Sword and Shield, man. People can hate on it all they want. I love what they did in Sword and Shield with the gym mechanics, with the idea of the gyms and turning them into a larger than life sport. And Leon embodied what it meant to be a champion in that environment so well. And great character, fantastic character. I think he's going to show up again, probably in a future bracket, if I remember correctly. He's still got a chance to win one of these. Today is not that day. Blue versus Cynthia. I got 3 words for you. Those aren't words, and I didn't know how to quantify them, so I picked 3. It felt like 3 words. Cynthia's piano. And of course I said whoever wins the left side is gonna win the entire thing, so congratulations to Cynthia. Now look, again, Blue and Cynthia, probably my top 2. Just because they're my top 2 doesn't necessarily make it close. It's Cynthia, and then Blue, and then all the other champions. The other ones, nobody even holds a candle to my queen Cynthia. Okay, thank you so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Would you like to share your results with me? You can fill out this bracket yourself, link in the description below, and you can send it to me on Twitter @JustJershin, or you can join the community Discord. Link will also be in the description below. And you can share it with me. You can also go watch our boy Yeetus and NSL do their own version of this bracket. I will have the link to both of their channels in the description below. Again, we're going in weird orders, so I don't know if it will be live at the time that it comes out, but it's possible that it is. And if it is, you should go watch it. But with that, thank you so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed. If you did, please consider showing some support down below. Liking, commenting, subscribing helps out a great deal. Share with your grandmother as always. But with that, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys next time.